Okay, so my name is Kira Houchin, and if you don't know who I am, um, I am going to just get this started because it's been on my heart to do like a podcast type thing for a long time. I've been putting it off just because I don't know what to do. Like when you the fear of the unknown and you just don't know how to do it, then you just don't do it, right? Or just because you're overwhelmed and preoccupied by so many other things, which is definitely what's going on in the case in my life right now. But I figured I might as well just start recording some videos, whether I share them or not right away, to just kind of share my journey with what has been happening over the last year or so, just regarding everything with my husband's business. And also just like to encourage people what it looks like to take a leap of faith and to share with you my own personal struggles, my own personal frustrations, those types of things, but also the way that God shows up and the way that He personally speaks to me and all of those things. And I'm going to dive into that too. So let's back this up a little bit. So for those of you that may or may not know, my husband was a full-time teacher and a football coach for several years. And just over the course of the last several years, he really felt the call to walk away from teaching and coaching, specifically football, but to become a personal trainer. He actually started to dive into this community called ATG, and then went down some other rabbit holes with neurological stuff because of his RPR and now Square One. And so it's kind of been just an interesting, the way it's all come about, right? Like the Lord totally takes people on journeys. Sometimes those journeys, if you are obedient and you're really seeking out the Lord right away, with everything, you'll probably experience maybe not so much, I don't know, some road bumps or roadblocks or whatever. It's not necessarily a shortcut, but you may not take the detour if you're actually following the Lord's calling on your life, right? And sometimes, like, I know that people feel very, very hesitant to make specific decisions, because what if they make the wrong decision, right? What if they make the wrong decision, which then causes a ripple effect of all these things? Well, here's the deal. At the end of the day, if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, the Lord definitely has a plan for you. And it's already been predetermined. It's already been laid out. And yes, by His grace and His mercy, we have free will, right? We can choose how we want to do things. That's what's so awesome about the dynamic of our relationship with Him, is that we're not robotics. We're not, under some force of nature type thing where we have to follow specific rules and regulations. Like, we literally have our own free will. So yes, there is a chance that you could potentially make the wrong decision, but all that's going to mean is ultimately at the end of the day is that you maybe just took a longer route to get to where He ultimately has planned for you, right? Or maybe you kind of needed to go on that route to open your eyes up to the bigger plan that He has for you. And we've definitely done that. We have definitely, Wade will say right off the bat that he made some decisions early on with just the different teaching opportunities as he was pursuing to be his dream job of being a head football coach. Isn't that funny how that is? Like, we have these ideas, right, of what we think our dream job is. And so, yeah, he definitely made decisions out of his own well-being, right? Like what he thought was best for him, maybe not even necessarily considering the whole rest of the family and or what God was thinking. And he suffered the consequences, and not necessarily in a bad way, but there were some rough patches because of the decisions that he made, and ultimately got back to where I think the path that the Lord was calling him on in the first place. And, we just kind of took a detour as a family. Now, I will tell you, in those detours, because of my obedience, my personal obedience to Jesus, but also to Wade, even though I didn't want to do some of these things and I was not happy about being where we were or those types of things, the Lord was so gracious in still blessing our family, blessing me personally, blessing my ministry, and making it appear that He's like, Kira, because of your obedience, like, you're going to be blessed. Not that Wade was like not blessed, but he just went through a lot more struggles in certain situations. And so, but then also looking back to, it's like a deal where you think about like how those certain paths line up. Like you meet people that you probably wouldn't have met otherwise. And I just had a situation because of the path that we were on. We got the opportunity to just really be used by the Lord in areas and in situations where, through the ministry of FCA, honestly, for me, to impact lives. And, those are still being talked about this last weekend at the Weekend of Champions. And so I'm just like, that is so cool, like how good and gracious God is, and what we may think is the best thing for us that ultimately isn't the best thing, or what even negative things happen, bad things that happen that Satan essentially is maybe like their spiritual warfare, like the Lord is going to use it for good. And so that's something to always remember as well. So a little bit about the journey now that we've been on recently with Wade walking away from being a teacher and starting his own personal training business. So I'm going to tell you just right off the bat that like I knew that this was something that he was supposed to do, but I didn't want to go into debt for it. And I didn't want, there's just some things that were happening that I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this, and I don't know where the money's going to come from, and those types of things. And so I kind of pulled a Gideon. And if you're not familiar with Gideon, Gideon is in the Old Testament, and he was the prophet that basically was like, okay, Jesus, well, not Jesus, but okay, God, because Jesus was there, but not really there. like, Yes, he wasn't in existence according to the world yet, but he was there. But he was pretty much like, okay, God, I'm going to lay this fur sheet out, and essentially I want the entire ground around it to be soaking wet and the fur to be dry. And the Lord provided. The Lord showed that. He came out the next morning. That's how it was. And then that like right after they said, okay, I just need more proof. I need more evidence that you are here, that this is what you want me to do. Okay, now I want everything else around the ground around to be dry and the fur to be wet. And the next morning he did just that. And I think he tested God one more time. And essentially then it's like, okay, hello. And so I kind of pulled a Gideon with our house because we've always had very unfortunate, really off the wall circumstances that have taken place with our house that have never made it an easy process, that literally makes me like cringe at the idea of ever looking at a house. And when we move like 5 times in a row, like 5 summers in a row, that also doesn't help the situation either. But it was a deal where I pulled a Gideon because I'm like, I did not want to go through all of these things. And I really am like, okay, Lord, if this is what you want us to do, I need you to show up by making the path completely clear and straight so that we don't have the hiccups, we don't have issues, that we don't have to like redo a whole bunch of things or like, update a whole bunch of stuff, pour a bunch of money into this before we even make it possible. And so, yes, so that is exactly what basically I did. And the Lord ended up making that path straight. Like it wasn't as quick as what everybody else was experiencing when they were selling their house a year ago, but the Lord opened up a door and made it possible. And we also were able to find, like we downgraded from the house side of things, but we found a place to rent, and then that had an outbuilding that we ended up turning into our own gym. And it was totally ghetto fabulous. It was crazy. It was awesome. We sweat like crazy during the summer, and we froze in every way, shape, and form, like in the winter, like breath as we worked out, like you could just see the breath, all of the things. So but it was so cool, the environment that we created, the way that the Lord provided, the way that the Lord brought people in, connections, all of it. Like it was awesome. Well, so also in the process, Wade, through his community with ATG, got connected with some other people. And one of the things that we just kind of realized was where we were in Nebraska, just in Nebraska in general, the demographic is so different compared to other parts of the country in terms of what people are willing to pay for training, the investment factor. And Wade walked away from the teaching stuff because he's like, I'm never going to make more than what I already have. Like he was maxed out on all of his, like he had 2 master's degrees, all of that. He's just like, I want to be able to provide more for our family. Well, and providing more for our family means that we kind of had to go backwards, unfortunately, where it's like, oh, how are we going to pay these bills, type of thing, because again, it's a leap of faith, right? And you're not getting that consistent paycheck coming in on a monthly basis or bi-weekly, whatever it is for people. So, but there's also a higher ceiling factor too. Well, kind of in that, come March, April, we had a situation where I went down to Florida just to meet some people with Wade, and because there was like an expo thing for ATG. And that's kind of when conversations started talking about potentially moving to Texas or to Florida. And I was really starting to seek the Lord out on my own of what this was going to look like, because the last 3 years prior to this, Wade had been called up to go down to Texas to teach and coach. And the year before, we were so close to moving, but we just really strongly felt that it was not that time yet. And then, and here we are again, the 4th year in a row, Texas was calling our name. And I'm like, I am so over Texas calling our name. But the Lord had otherwise. He had plans otherwise. And so, because I was so tired of moving, I didn't want to keep moving. I was done. I wanted my kids to be able to finish where they were. They had established friendships, those types of things, just all of the stuff you think about, right? Like club teams, sports teams, groups of friends, the community. We had family all by us. And I'm like, I don't want to move to Texas. So eventually, over the course from like April, May, June, I had been seeking the Lord out individually about what we were supposed to do. And the Lord just kind of kept prompting me that it was time to go. And I did not want to do it. I did not want to give into that. And it was like just through me either getting into his word. It was honestly like me opening up Instagram, and this person that I didn't even follow before like showed up on my newsfeed, on my newsfeed. And as I was scrolling, and it was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. And I'm like, what? And I didn't even follow him after like that first time. And then a week later, I like scrolled through, and I'm sure it was like an algorithm thing because I clicked on like the thing that I had seen. And then there was another one, and I'm like, really? And kind of at that second time was when I shared it with Wade, because I had been holding back. I don't know if you guys have ever done this with your spouse, but when you already know what their plan is, you already know what their heart's desire is, and you're the one that just isn't quite ready yet, like how you just don't always share maybe that change of heart that you have, because you know that as soon as you say it, they're going to be all over. Okay, let's go. Well, that's kind of how I felt with Wade, with the fact of moving to Texas, because he would have moved to Texas like 3 years ago if I would have given him an opportunity. Again, because he would have just been following his own desires, and not really necessarily waiting on the Lord. And sometimes it's so hard to wait on the Lord. I don't know if you've had that in your life where you have these desires in your heart, and it's just a deal where you're just supposed to wait. You're supposed to just wait in the Lord's time, because his timing is perfect. His timing is going to be exactly what you need in that exact moment. And if we rush that process, that's when we're going to experience those hiccups. Or even if we delay that process, if we hold off because of fear, you might miss out on some of those blessings. And so, so I kind of was like holding out. And I finally am like, okay, I need to share with him that this is the Lord. And we've been praying about it together too, but like I literally put up a wall. So he did not know where I actually was. Like he did not know, I did not share with him what the Lord was telling me individually. And so, so once we did, it became a deal where it became reality. And we moved our family from Nebraska to Texas within about a month time frame. By God's grace, also in the meantime, we had a kid from Washington come, and he was interning with us in the summer. And when we decided that we were going to move and we were going to take the gym with us, people were like, nope, we want him to stay. We want this to stay. And so it's still running right now. We're still kind of up in the air with what we're going to do with it. But I do want to tell you just kind of in this next prompting. Okay. So we moved to Texas with no guaranteed income, no guaranteed job. There was ideas, there was talks. Wade had some, conversations with people where there could be potential partnerships. And in that time, those things kind of fell through. And then once again, I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, Lord, why? You clearly moved us here for a reason, because you made it abundantly clear to me, not that he didn't make it abundantly clear to Wade, but again, Wade's been wanting to be here for forever and ever, and I have not. So that's why I'm like, you made it clear to me, so what is this deal? When things kind of keep falling through. Well, within the last 2.5 weeks or so, things transitioned again, where Wade was going to be a general manager of a sports performance facility in Plano, and things just kind of got shifted around with what his role was going to look like as a general manager, and it just wasn't going to be conducive to what we needed for our family and the timing and all of that stuff. And so we just kind of like, you know what, maybe this just isn't what we're supposed to do, kind of prayed about it again, and just felt that the Lord's nudging was that Wade needed to bet on himself again. Like, let's start over from the ground up again. And I can't express to you how scary that is, because I was actually like anxiously waiting for March to come, because that's when that facility was going to open. I was anxiously waiting for for March to come, so that I can know that we would have a guaranteed paycheck, because literally we have been surviving, barely surviving every week. Like, literally we've been taking each week as a week by week thing of, what bill can we pay this day? How much money do we have to go buy groceries to get through this week for the kids? And that's a really crappy situation to be in, when you want nothing more but to provide for your family, right? You want nothing more to tell your kids yes, when like ultimately like, sorry, we can't. You're doing everything you can to scrape every penny, like whatever that looks like, to make things possible. And it just sucks. And so I'm like, okay, literally, Lord, like, can we not just catch a break? Well, so I will say that also in this whole, like last week, it's been a deal of, well, if we're going to go this route, Wade has been training people out of our garage. I'm like, we probably need a bigger facility. Like, we need a bigger place in the garage. But if we can barely pay our rent, how the heck are we going to pay a lease for a space? And we looked at a space, and like, you guys, it's so crazy how the Lord does work. And I'm not telling you, I'm not saying that, like, or let me tell you this, okay? When Jesus told his disciples, come follow me, he didn't say like, come follow me, it's going to be easy. He said, come follow me. And in fact, he actually said the opposite. He said, don't go and make don't get your affairs in order. Don't go home and try to get everything figured out with your household. Don't go home and say goodbye to your family. Just come follow me. So like, there is an instant, like, huge amount of trust that we have to have in Jesus when he says, come follow me. And that's kind of how I feel right now, because when you can't when you're struggling to pay for your own rent, and he's asking you to like maybe go take on a lease so that you can actually go and bet on yourself and open up a facility where you live, that's a really scary come follow me. Like, I'm not joking. So that is where I've been. But yet, here's how he's opening. Here's how he's slowly revealing. And this is kind of the point of what I wanted to share with people too, is the Lord is going to speak to you in potentially numerous different ways. He could speak to you, first and foremost, through his word, through the Bible, through scripture, because that it is God breathed. And sometimes you need to get to, seek out clarification, expand on context, that type of thing. But I truly believe that if, kind of with my experience with YWAM Youth with Mission, like, if you literally are just still, so often when we pray, we are the ones talking, and the Lord is like, just sit and hear my voice, hear what I have to share with you. And if you clear out all of the crap and the craziness and the chaos going on in your mind, and you just try to silence yourself, it's going to open up the door for the Lord to really speak. And I will tell you from experience that when he speaks, at least to me, it never makes sense. It's kind of out of the blue. Sometimes it's for that instant. Sometimes it's like for later on. Sometimes it's just like, I don't know if that really is it or not. So you just got to ask the Holy Spirit for discernment. But I will say that, so here I am, and he'll also speak to you through people. He'll speak to you, by opening up doors. Like one of the ways that Wade feels the Lord speaks to him is just by opening and shutting doors. Very rarely are people getting an audible voice, and I would also say the Lord speaks to people in dreams. I don't know how often that is, but I mean, it's possible. I do know a friend that when I was doing YWAM, because she was in a very strict Muslim country, the Lord spoke to her in a dream, and she came to know Jesus through a dream because she was sick. And she woke up and she felt better. She was the Lord healed her. She believed in him. And then actually her mom had to hurry up and hide her and get her out of the country before her father found out, because he would have killed her. So one of those situations, it just because converting to Christianity was not a thing in the country that she lived in. And so, but the Lord can speak in that way too. Obviously he clearly spoke to people all sorts of different ways in the Old Testament, and then through the New Testament through the Holy Spirit as well. So I say this because as I was driving back to the Weekend of Champions this last weekend up in Nebraska, I was praying, and the Lord, and literally Wade instantly had called me. It was out of nowhere, but he called me. He's like, hey, I just got off the phone with this person, and basically we were talking about the lease and the landlord, and they were just they are literally going to let you go into this facility rent free for the first 2 to 3 months. That will obviously be tacked on later, but you don't have to come up with anything right off the bat. There's so much flexibility in that. They even may let us get in early, that type of thing. And just the way that this person talked about the landlord being so flexible, in situations, she's like, you're never gonna, she's like, I'm telling you right now, you're not gonna find this anywhere else. And she's like, I'm also gonna tell you that a space like this is probably not going to be available for the next 1.5 to 2 years for this amount, for this type of situation. So no pressure at all, but I'm just making you aware of the situation. And so I was like, okay, Lord, are you trying to just give me peace of mind to know that everything, this is a good situation to walk into. It's not something to be completely scared about, because maybe there is some grace, maybe there is some flexibility, whatever. So that's one way. Okay. So after I got off the phone with Wade, and I was asking the Lord to just literally make it abundantly clear what we needed to do, because I was scared. I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death to take the leap of faith. And as I was just getting on the other side of Oklahoma City, they have a kind of a Six Flags theme park type thing. And I saw the big Ferris wheel. And you guys, I love I love amusement parks. I love roller coasters. I'm not afraid of those at all. I'm the scarier, the better. I'm a thrill ride junkie. And as I got close to the Ferris wheel, it was literally that's the only thing I saw first. And it was just the Lord, literally, it was as if the Lord was saying, stop spinning in circles, get off the Ferris wheel and get on that roller coaster and take a ride with me and trust me. And I'm like, nope, I am good. And it was just no, the Ferris wheel is safe. All you're going to do is spin in circles, and I need you to get on this roller coaster and experience me. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm not afraid of roller coasters. Why? And it was the Lord's I know you're not afraid of roller coasters. There's a ton of people afraid of roller coasters, and I know you're not, but you are clearly afraid to trust me right now. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. I am afraid. And so that was kind of a deal. And then, even again, so it's okay, there was just some other things that kind of took place throughout the weekend, where the Lord was just so good. And even just surrounding me with other believers that could just speak hope and encouragement into my heart and my soul. Because honestly, the biggest thing that I feel I'm really struggling with is just, I am exhausted. I'm exhausted with the conditions that we've been living with for the last, my entire married life. And my mom was talking to me specifically about somebody described it really well, about how it's almost there's a pebble in your shoe, and it just it won't you can't get it out, and you're just constantly stepping on it, and it's uncomfortable, and it wears and it rubs and it hurts, and and it's just like, but it won't go away. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I felt financially with the last 16 and a half, almost 17 years of marriage. It's just like, oh my gosh, like there is a pebble in my shoe and I'm so ready for it to be done. Like I'm just exhausted by it. So I think that's another part of my fear is like, I'm exhausted, like spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And that's what Satan's going to do. Satan is going to, when you're ready to take on a big leap of faith, take on, just truly just jump out of the boat and trust that Jesus is going to help you walk on water. Like that is when all of those distractions, that is when all of the discouragement comes. That's when you become exhausted because the enemy is trying to wear you down. So then there was another thing that I read when I got home on Monday that literally talked specifically about that. As I was praying, I'm just like, I am exhausted. And it was like literally a different thing that I'd seen on Facebook that or on Instagram that spoke specifically to how in the midst of momentum, knowing that and I'm in the exact place that the Lord has called me to be, Satan is going to do everything he can to distract and discourage me because he knows that if I'm in the Lord's will, at the same time, the Lord is going to make a way, and it's going, but he wants to throw me off the track as much as he possibly can, so I can't complete what the Lord is calling me to do, right? And so that was something that was an encouragement to me. So then another way that the Lord just spoke to me just yesterday was basically, I was sitting in the sauna, okay? And I was just asking because I'm like, I feel this point that, yep, I'm supposed to do this, even though it's so stupid. It literally is so stupid according to the rest of the world, right? And I'm like, but I feel like I'm supposed to do it. Well, here, as I was sitting in the sauna and I was praying, I had my eyes closed and I opened them and there was 25 minutes left on the timer, okay? And as I just kind of continued to pray, because I'm like, Lord, I need to know that you are going to bring people. I need to know, I need to have confidence to know that you are going to provide people for us to be able to train, to be able to pay for rent, not only for this lease, but for our house and for food for our kids and all of those things. And as I sat there, it literally just hit me the 25 was supposed to be verses 2-5. And then it just hit me and then again, it just was chapter 12, 2-5. But for whatever reason, the Lord always tells me the number 12. 12 is a number. But then it was Job, Isaiah, Romans, Hebrews. Okay. So I was like, I'm just going to look up what Job 12, 2-5 is, Isaiah 12, 2-5 is, Romans 12, 2-5 is, and what Hebrews 12, 2-5 is. So this is what it is. Job 12, 2-5 says, doubtless you are the only ones who matter, and wisdom will die with you. But I have a mind as well as you. I am not inferior to you. Who does not know all these things? I have become a laughing stock to my friends. So I called on God, and he answered, a mere laughing stock, though righteous and blameless. Those who are at ease have contempt for misfortune as the fate of those whose feet are slipping. And for me in that moment, it was more reading through that, not that I'm actually a laughing stock, because I'm not. But I know that people are going to question what we're doing. I know that people are going to be like, why, how, and what, And so, but yet at the same time, and not that I know that I'm righteous or blameless by any, mean at all. But I also know that in the same breath, I've been trying everything I can to be obedient. And so as a result of being obedient, yep, I'm probably going to, what the Lord is actually asking us to do is crazy. And I might be a laughing stock, but that's okay because he's going to answer, right? So then Isaiah 12, 2-5 says, surely God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. The Lord himself is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. With joy, you will draw water from the wells of salvation. And in that day, you will say, give praise to the Lord, proclaim his name. Make known among the nations what he has done, and proclaim that his name is exalted. Sing to the Lord, for he has done glorious things. Let this be known to all the world. And so first off, verse 2, when it says, trust in the Lord and not, I will trust and not be afraid. Right away, I'm I need to truly trust and not be afraid. I trust, but I'm still afraid. And not that fear is going to go away completely, but at the same time, like we have to step into that fear, right? And we just have to do things scared, but truly, truly trust. But then the other component of it is like that I am going to praise. Like I need to make sure that I am praising Jesus with everything that happens, good, bad, or the ugly, because he's the one that is in control of it all. And it was a word of encouragement, because it's like, I'm going to sing to the Lord for all he is, like for all the glory, or for he has done glorious things. Let this be known to all the world. And I really believe that this is going to be an opportunity. Our story, which is why I hopped on today, our story is going to be something that is going to like be able to glorify Christ because of all the things that he's done, all the glorious things he's done. And I want the whole world to know that there is a God out there that truly does see you exactly where you're at. He knows your heart. He knows your pain. He knows your struggle. He knows your joys. He knows your, the things that make you tick. He knows your, desires, all of it. And he wants what's best for you, but let's trust him in that. And then let's give him the glory in that as well. Then Romans 12:2-5 says, do not be conformed by the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. For by grace given me, I will say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not have the same function, so in Christ we, though many, form one body. Each member belongs to the others. And so clearly verse 2 again in this was a situation where it's like, yeah, if I am renewing my mind, if I am thinking through a lens of what Christ has, then I will be able to see what God's will is, and knowing that his will is good, pleasing, and perfect, right? Like, and having confidence in that. But then the next sections, the next 3 verses, I was like, what does this mean? But then actually the Lord really hit me with like, I have a trust issue, and I want like the control freak in me. I want to control it all. And I don't always like to let other people in on things. So with this specifically, with the gym and whatever else I got going on in my own life, like it's like allowing, like it was almost like the Lord was like, Kira, like don't think that you can just do it all yourself. Like you literally like have people that are around you that have different gifts and abilities that can be a blessing. Like let these people come alongside you. Let these people, be a part of this journey with you. This is another way that you can show my goodness by allowing these people to come alongside you and help you in these areas that you aren't necessarily the greatest in. And that's a control freak in me, right? Like that's not wanting to give that up, but that's what the Lord, I feel like, was saying to me in that moment. Like we all play a different part, and by all of us working together, then great things can happen. And then the last one was Hebrews 12, 2-5. So it says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, for the joy set before him and enduring the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you may not grow weary and lose heart. Well, so that's verse 2 and 3. And like clearly I'm like, I am so tired, right? And I'm like, in just the opposition of what we've been facing, I'm like, the Lord, just that gentle reminder, like, don't grow weary and lose heart. Now, this was the only chapter that I actually read more than just 2-5. And I know why eventually, but this is what it said. So in your struggle against sin, so this is verse 4. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And you've completely forgotten this word of encouragement that addresses you as a father addresses his son. It says, my son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline and do not lose heart when he rebukes you. Because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone who accepts who he accepts as his son. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. And so that was kind of a deal of like, realizing that just because of just some of the things that we're experiencing, the hardships that we're experiencing, it's not Jesus necessarily punishing us for not doing things right, but just understanding that he is disciplining us in a way to make us better, right? We discipline our kids because we want them to be better. We want them to see the difference of right and wrong. We want them to know what path they're supposed to walk on, right? But then as I moved forward to verses 11 and 12 and 13, this is what it says. No discipline, it seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So that right there in verse 11, I'm like, oh yeah, it's never pleasant. It's actually quite painful, but like the hope that I have to know that there is going to be a harvest of righteousness and peace as a result of this, like that's what gives me comfort going into this crazy journey of what we're about to do. But then this is the even cooler thing. Verses 12 and 13, it says, therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees, make level paths for your feet so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. And you guys, if you know anything about what we do with our training, like this, I'm like, this is our training. This is exactly what we do. Like the knees, especially like working on the knees over toe stuff. Like this is exactly what like we do. And with what Wade does with the Square One and trying to help people be healed from the pain that they're in and like not feel like they're disabled and not feel like they can't function anymore. And so that is just a very long but yet short, because there's so much that goes on in between all of what I've just shared with you. But those are like the big highlights as to what the Lord is really doing in my life, in our lives, how the Lord is speaking to me, but then also like just wanting to be an encouragement to you that like, if you truly feel like you're supposed to be doing something and it is scary, like seek the Lord and he will make it abundantly clear to you, or find other people in your life, that maybe don't have a whole lot going on, but they do, regarding, like they don't have a whole lot of an interaction with what is going on within your personal space, but yet they can speak into that. So like, there's not a biased feeling or emotion or whatever. Seek somebody else out to pray over you, to pray for you, to intercede on your behalf. And you might be surprised that they could speak some truth to your heart and like help be that vessel, that conduit, right? That the Lord uses to just to give you a word from him, if you feel like the Lord is silent to you. So that is all I have for today. I hope that you guys have a great day and truly, honestly, do everything you can to live the best version of your life that you have been called to live, not for your own glory, but for his glory. Have a great day.